And there was always that phrase like, I could do it all night, going all night. Yeah, Murray goes all night. I was like, can you guys go all night? I don't know if I ever could go all night.
I don't want to go all night. Why would I want to go all night?
Yeah, it's become obviously clear that Big D's inner Sandy left years ago.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower after Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we love when growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes and this is the podcast for you, I'm one of your three co-hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene Snotface Lyons.
I never had imaginary friends, just wet dreams.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we then break out a race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of the podcast, the three of us will provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Watchmen, and just a reminder, Westworld Season 3 is coming right around the corner. March 15th, I think, is the debut date. So if you haven't started your watch, go do that. We'll probably be doing some preview episodes. So make sure you subscribe over there. You can check out all the information at shatontv.com. That being said, Big D, we've got a hard stop at this recording because I'm traveling to New Jersey, where today's commission comes from.
Yes, we've had the luck of having some really loyal listeners who've been with us since we started way back in I think it was August of 2016. And 1,176 days ago, Gillian entered our lives. She sent her first email on November 8th of 2016. And since then, she's been one of our most loyal listeners. She's followed us through most of our TV series, mainly Westworld, Game of Thrones. She follows the movies. She has donated before to help support the podcast. And she said, it's about time. I've waited long enough. I would love for you guys to do the 1991 Imaginary Friend classic, Drop Dead Fred.
Well, anytime someone does commission and support the podcast, we ask them to send in a letter explaining why they sent hard-earned dollars to 3 knuckleheads like us. And Gillian is no different. Now, this is a little bit pared down. It's not her traditional manifesto. But Gene, you have her letter right in front of you.
Yeah, definitely paraphrased from the usual tome that Gillian will send us. She writes, "It's taken me over a year to finally decide on a movie that I would like to commission. It had to be one that you haven't done, one that was also made before the 2000s, and one that I actually remember being amazing and loved in my household. I don't remember when I saw it. I don't remember the last time I saw it. I never knew what it was really about. But I loved the dog poop scene, was always scared of the end dream sequence, and cried when she had to say goodbye to Fred. The idea of a grown-up with an imaginary friend stuck with me, and it's one of those movies that, when talking about your childhood, pops into my mind because it was a staple in my household. None of my friends have ever seen it. Only one person that I have asked can remember bits of it, and it's a movie that I think should be remade today, given all the things that go on. I don't think it'll be a Pulp Fiction zero wipe kind of movie, but I would love to hear all 3 of your takes on this cult classic, as Wikipedia called it. Thanks for all you do always, and sorry it took so long to contribute. Gillian."
Well, Drop Dead Fred is a 1991 British-American cult black comedy fantasy film directed by At De Jong. Rik Mayall stars as the titular character, a happy, anarchic, and mischievous imaginary friend of a young girl named Elizabeth, played by Phoebe Cates, and the nemesis of her overbearing mother, Polly, played by Marsha Mason. He causes chaos around the home and neighborhood, but nobody can see him except for Elizabeth. And when she grows up, she has an emotional crisis And so Drop Dead Fred returns to cheer her up in his own unique way, causing more chaos than ever before. The supporting cast does include Carrie Fisher and Bridget Fonda. It was produced on a budget of just under $6.8 million. It was released theatrically in North America on May 24th, 1991, grossing just over $3.6 million on its opening weekend and went on to gross $13.8 million over its entire theatrical run. Polygram, the film's production studio, was apparently so disturbed by the final cut of this movie that it tried to sell Drop Dead Fred to another distributor. Several big studios passed on the film, but New Line Cinema signed on in the end. Drop Dead Fred was critically panned upon its release, but has gone on to become a cult classic. That being said, before we dive into the review, we always ask the question, where were you the first time you saw Drop Dead Fred, and what are your memories of it? We'll start with you, Big D.
So way back in 1991, when this movie came out in May, I had just graduated high school, and this movie had zero appeal to me. The poster, the trailer, it just seemed like it was aimed at kids. So I didn't go to the theater. I don't even think I saw it on video, but this movie was definitely not aimed at me. And after watching it, I know why.
How about you, Gene? Had you ever seen Drop Dead Fred before we had to do it for the podcast?
No. I was 11, actually just a few days before my 11th birthday. I remember this movie coming out, and I was very excited because I was like, oh, I just turned 11. Maybe I can go see a movie with my cousins. And my older cousin, who had just moved to the U.S., she invited my fucking sister to go see the movie. And all I knew was they were going to see some funny movie. And my cousin, who had come to America from Iran by way of Germany, was like, there's this movie. It's called Art Bart Fart. And I was like, fuck. As an 11-year-old, I'm like, I want to see a movie called Art Bart Fart. Sounded cool. They went without me. And it pissed me off so much that I never watched the movie. Like, even when people would mention it, I would still get steamed up. I got a lot of anger from my childhood directed toward my sister, who's a lovely woman, and I love her very much. But yeah, never saw it, and was surprised by what it was. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think this is our first three-peat, because I had never seen Drop Dead Fred. You know, I never bought into this whole the Yahoo Serious craze that swept the nation around this time. You guys ever know what happened to Yahoo Serious? He was like Australia's most loved comedian at the time. He gained international fame in the 1988 surprise smash hit Young Einstein, and he went on to make two more films. But in this past decade, Yahoo Serious completely vanished from public life and has not been pictured in public since 2007. And I found out in doing my research for this movie, I also found out that Drop Dead Fred isn't played by Yahoo Serious, but rather Rik Mayall.
Well done.
A British alt comic who once dressed as Hitler in an advertisement to protest the UK moving from the pound sterling to the euro. So yeah, I thought this was a Yahoo Serious movie. No, they're two different people. I had no idea.
Go figure.
Rik Mayall's dead. And Yahoo Serious, we don't know what's happening. I think he lives in like a rich Australian suburb somewhere. I hope he's safe.
You're just making that up.
No, I'm dead serious. I'm Yahoo Serious. With that being said, Big D, play the trailer.
Honey, why'd you call him Drop Dead Fred?
Because that's his name, Daddy.
Like many small children, Lizzie had an imaginary playmate.
Drop Dead Fred is going to teach me how to cook today.
Someone she could talk to.
Sugar?
Yeah.
Someone she could share with.
Oh, Grandma Bun!
Someone who would never let her down.
No more Drop Dead Fred. Period.
Now Lizzie is all grown up.
To us.
And when her perfect life fell apart,
Charles, I lost my money, my car, my husband.
she didn't get mad.
Drop Dead Fred.
She got Fred.
There's no face!
What, who dropped dead? Drop Dead Fred is this imaginary friend that I had as a child, and he's back.
Everybody has strange friends, even you must.
But all mine are alive.
Well, that's not saying much.
It's no wonder Charles left you.
Haven't got a husband, got a stupid haircut.
You see, you just don't know how to make a marriage work.
Well, let's get Charles back then. I'll help you.
Let's just behave ourselves. Get up.
No, Pandas.
He's back.
Yeah, well, what's wrong with that?
Nothing, except you're ruining my life.
to show her, no matter how bad things look now,
Peekaboo.
they can always get infinitely worse.
Drop Dead Fred was way out of control.
Have I got him?
You're dead, little man.
There's nobody there.
It's because he's invisible. Idiot! I don't want an imaginary friend anymore.
Right, that's it. I hate you.
Ow!
Goodbye forever.
Drop Dead Fred.
Ugh, what does that taste like?
Every child should have one, especially when she grows up.
Elizabeth Cronin is an unassertive and repressed woman dominated by her controlling mother, Polly. While taking her lunch break from work, she visits her husband, Charles, from whom she is separated, hoping to sort out their problems. He reasserts his desire for a divorce and says that he is in love with another woman named Annabella.
So, guys, a lot of times we pick on the production or the writing or the acting in a film. I think this is the first time that I just want to call out casting for hiring all like the second stringers. Like, I feel like everyone in this movie was the second choice for the role. So like Elizabeth Cronin is played by Phoebe Cates, right? That clearly should have been Winona Ryder. Like, she's just a poor man's Winona Ryder. Polly, the mom, is a nobody. That's a great role from like a Kim Basinger at that point in her career, right? She would have been perfect there. Like, she's got a little bit of sizzle, but she's a little crazy and neurotic to put together. Charles is like supposed to be romantic and sexy in some way. Get Kurt Russell in there and we would understand why she's obsessed with him, right? And then Fred, Rik Mayall, which by the way, I actually really like Rik Mayall a lot, but this role was made for Pee Wee Herman. What a fucking miss in all these cases.
Well, I think the biggest miss is they've got Phoebe Cates, arguably one of the most beautiful women to ever grace the screen, especially in the 80s. When you think of like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and that knockoff of the Blue Lagoon, was it Paradise or something, where she takes a shower underneath a waterfall? Oh, young Phoebe Cates, God bless. She's married to Kevin Kline. Did you guys know that?
Did not know that.
Yeah, married to Kevin Kline. Anyway, why is she dressed like a conservative Mormon and walking around like a lost puppy dog? Is there more to this relationship that we're being led on? Is she being physically abused as well by her Jaguar selling Annabella cheating husband, who apparently still lives in the apartment with her?
You know, I've never really thought about this angle, Raj, but she is covered from head to toe throughout the movie. Is she hiding some bruise? And look, we're not making light of domestic abuse, but rather that this might be an angle that maybe the movie was afraid to approach in 91. But now looking back, you're like, wait a second. I could see that there. I think the reason why she's dressed like that, though, is we're supposed to believe that she never escaped her childhood, right? That she still dresses like an idiot 3-year-old.
Yeah, and you know, it's difficult because, again, when you think of Phoebe Cates, at least I do, I think of those movies that I just named, and they've really made her not sexy at all throughout the movie. It's almost a turnoff when there are some sexual things that happen between her. There's some flashbacks of her, like, ooh, they just got done having sex and she's shaving them. And I'm like, ugh, this is gross.
Yeah.
She's like a child.
What's really weird about it is I'm a student of the USA Network, right? Like when I was a kid and you would watch like Silk Stockings and shit. The blocking, the music, the furniture, the costuming they use, this shit is all taken directly from the same studio that did all these movies and shows on USA Network. And I kept thinking like a titty was going to pop out or like we're going to get some man buns like we did at Lethal Weapon. This felt like porn. The acting was like porn. The music, the sound effects, it was all like porn, but without the benefit of the boobs. It was maddening. I realized how much porn leads on, bear with me here, nudity. Without it, it's kind of lost.
So I think the low budget nature of this kind of comes from it being tossed around the different studios. It didn't know what it wanted to be. All of the advertisement looks like it's for kids, but then they had these adult themes. But Fred, he's fucking dangerous. He is a terrible role model. He goes way beyond the normal, like, fun childhood mischief. He convinces Lizzie to terrorize old people, to shave a cat, to break into a house and play burglar. And he has this fondness for looking up women's skirts to see if they're wearing underwear. I don't think the movie knew what it wanted to be. And maybe at its core, you're right, Gene, it should have been an adult R-rated film.
I can't help thinking, is Fred really like a demon?
Yes.
If this movie is really more of a adult horror film, it was intended to be that way, almost like a Donnie Darko for women.
Yeah, like kind of like in the Shining, when you were wondering, like, are there really spirits at work, or is it all in the imagination? I'm like, is Lizzie actually doing all of these things? Because it seems highly improbable that a child can pull off half of this shit. And then there are points where he is operating in a different area physically, and I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't seem right.
And I know again, Gene, to your point, we talked about this during our recording of The Shining. Go back and download it. It was one of our Halloween movies that we did. But Big D, you're the only one with a child here. You're the only one that can possibly relate to this. If Emma were to start talking to someone else, were to start destroying things, and then telling you, I didn't do this, go to hell, Harry did, what are you going to do?
Man, I mean, recently there was some pen marks on our sofa. It wasn't my wife. It wasn't me. It wasn't the cat. So I said, Emma, did you make these marks on the couch? She goes, oh, no. Maybe somebody in the neighborhood came through the cat door, made the marks, and left. Mm-hmm. That I can tolerate. If she started rubbing shit all over the couch, started terrorizing my grandmother, it goes from fun kid, having a good time, to something that you should really seek professional advice.
She's like one step away from blaming minorities and marginalized people at this point. It was the homeless. It was immigrants, Dad.
No, you'd be very proud. We went to a party this weekend with a bunch of Jordanians and Palestinians, and not once did she make a terrorist joke.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Big D is messaging me like he wants a fucking gold star. He's like, Gene,
yeah, I know.
Met some Palestinians. They were super chill. Met some Jordanians. Very nice people. Yes. What did you expect?
I'm pretty sure he came back radicalized. He's like, you know what? I don't trust Israel anymore. And I'm like, who are you?
No, here was the difference. We went to two parties. We had a typical American party first for Toy Story 4 was the theme. And it was like Papa John's pizza, chicken nuggets. It was a bunch of junk food. So we went from there to this Jordanian family who Emma goes to school with, one of their children. And they said, be here at 4. We're having dinner. I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe we're going to barbecue. Maybe something. We walk in. It's like Thanksgiving dinner. There's a giant table. Everyone's dressed up. It was like a family event. And I was just saying it was really nice that they made us feel like we were part of the family as opposed to joining a birthday party.
They didn't kidnap us. They didn't play any buskashi.
No. And no American parties have a hookah. So that was a plus.
I've lived in Arizona now going on for 9 years. I've been friends with Gene for 5 of those years. I've yet to be invited to one of his sick family gatherings where they have that giant table, just chock full of food. Everyone's cool. They do dancing, karaoke. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know if you're ready for like an indoor Persian party. Maybe we'll start out with like Charshembe Suri, which is at Fountain Hills. It's an outdoor one. It's like a picnic. We can slip you in, among all the confusion outdoors under the trees, all the kids playing and the sandwiches being passed around. They wouldn't notice the white guy. And then as you can work your way in from there, it'd be like your test. It's like when you bring a dog home for the first time, let it roam around the yard first, see if it's chill. It's not going to shit on anything. And then it can come outside and eat the kebabs.
Well, I have been growing my beard in anticipation of possibly just fitting in better. Yeah. And then I'm just going to sniff around, like you said, like kind of mark my territory. While Elizabeth is at a public phone, a man breaks into her car to steal her purse. Then her car is stolen as well. Forced to run back into work, she arrives late and loses her job. And while leaving the courthouse, she runs into an old friend, Mickey, who brings up childhood memories they shared, which includes memories of Elizabeth's childhood imaginary friend, Drop Dead Fred. Mickey explains how only Elizabeth could see Drop Dead Fred and everybody else thought she was crazy.
At this point in the movie, I thought I'd been magically whisked away back to LA Story because I was like, oh, it's so funny. Robbery after robbery. But in this case, I just got to point out that in the 80s and early 90s, we had a real diversity problem in film. And I think it's best exemplified with the fact that they couldn't even allow minorities to be the crooks. Like even they always had like guy that played like White Hood 1 and like White Burglar 2. So the guy who steals her purse and the guy who steals her car, they're just guys with like windbreakers and curly hair. It's always white dudes who are like dressed as a crook.
I feel like though the whitest, scariest crooks on the screen had to be in RoboCop.
Yes.
And then they promptly get their dick shot off, which I enjoyed. But like, did you imagine that Elizabeth's job would be a court reporter?
Yeah, I mean, if you said, "Hey, here's a person who's incredibly childish. What's the ideal job for them?" And I'd be like, "Stenographer." That sounds like a great match. But 80s movies left me very scarred because as a kid, when I was watching these movies, getting fired was a regular part of the plot line, and so I was convinced as a kid that you could get fired for anything at any time. And then as I grew up and graduated college, and I started working in newspapers, and then later in like the real corporate world, I discovered that it's like next to impossible to fire anybody.
I disagree. Now you've worked in journalism and I guess I don't know how the unions are in the newspapers anymore, but it feels more like to me, like you just got to get laid off or like the paper's closed. You in a real corporate environment. I think people are fired all the time or they're let go or they're no longer here.
No way. Florida is a right to work state. So you can fire anybody for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you can just do it. Because if you are a minority, if you're somebody over the age of, say, 55, if you have a disability, I've had an employee under me who just made an insinuation like, well, if they let me go, I think I should call someone about that. That's like saying, hey, if you fire me, there's going to be a lawsuit involved. So it does happen.
Yeah, I've had a direct report who was like late on the regular. And I was like, listen, this has got to stop. You got to start coming in on time. And I'm a guy who's late all the time. And this person was way beyond that. And I can't reveal names, obviously. But when I went to HR and I was like, listen, I got to let this person go. They're like, did you give them a verbal warning? I was like, yeah, I mean, I told them they were being late. Did you explain the consequences of being late? It's like, no. Like, did you give them a written warning? I'm like, no. They're like, you need to have an action plan and a performance improvement plan. You got to have a PIP. You got to file a PIP.
Oh, the PIPs are the worst. Listen, tips for all the millennials and the Zoomers coming into the workplace for the first time. If your boss ever pulls you into the office and puts you on a PIP, immediately do nothing for the rest of your time at that corporation except for look for other jobs. Because as soon as they give you a PIP, you have like 3 or 4 weeks before they let you go.
See, I feel like you've got a very different experience. Big D, tell me this. In your day job, can you name 3 people who should not be working there?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But is anybody going to do anything about it?
Oh, because it's the amount of work it would be a full-time project in order to get that person out. And still there would be the danger of litigation. There'd be the danger of you being brought up that you were somehow harassing them.
Maybe that's why it's so easy, because he's a judge. He's just like, you're fired. Also, I'm a judge.
But what I don't get is normally your coworkers, if they're cool, you'll give them some slack. You'll give them some room. She comes in and says, my husband, he just left me. My car was stolen. The judge doesn't even ask and be like, hey, listen, come over here, Lizzie. Let's talk about it. So she has to have been, maybe she's gone through the PIP. She's gone through the verbal warnings.
This is her last chance.
This is it.
She seems like someone who would have already been on a performance improvement plan, or she's very mousy. She seems like someone who like you want to root for, but just keeps fucking up. But then you're introduced to this character, Mickey Fart Pants. Was this character even fucking necessary?
No.
He's excited to be on this date. We know he's had some trouble dating for a while, but she's having a psychotic breakdown in the restaurant.
Right.
She's pouring the water in her lap. She's blurting out like she has Tourette's. She's throwing plates. She's breaking glasses.
Sure.
And Mickey is so needy. He's like, oh, that's kind of cute. Oh, yeah. I like your hair. Oh, yeah. He's the guy who gets stuck in the friend zone. He's driving her home. And she's talking about getting back with her ex-husband who's cheating on her.
Oh, 100%.
This is the perpetual Roger Roper friend zone move.
Oh, wait a minute. You're accusing me of being in the friend zone. Listen,
Roger doesn't have a single female friend.
No, that's not true. I have a lot of female friends, but I would call them more acquaintances. Because once they start getting in your orbit and you're hanging out with them, like, I'm going to want to bang you at least once just to get it out of the way so that there's no confusion.
That might be the adult 40-something Roger Roper, but younger Roger Roper, who I met, the VJ at Planet Hollywood, who had the earring, the hair looked the same.
I never had an earring at Planet Hollywood.
Did you have an earring?
I did in college for like 2 weeks, and then I was like, this is ridiculous. What have I done? It was like the time I tried heroin.
He's the one who would meet a girl, start talking to her. Someone else would start talking to her and going after her, and he'd be like, well, I was talking to her first.
I never said. What are you talking about? Who are you talking about? I never did that. I pined after one woman in my entire life, and it was the one who stuck a finger in my butthole the first time she went down on me. So I call that a pretty good success.
Maybe I'm confusing you with Mike Grace.
Yeah, I think that's who you're confusing me with.
Oh, so you didn't punch your hand through the window in the front of your house?
Yeah, because the girl who kept putting her finger in my butt when she went down on me was flirting with other dudes on my birthday. And I got drunk and took off my shoes in Orlando. They wouldn't let me into the bar. And I'm like, I don't understand. They're like, sir, it's because you're not holding any shoes or you're not wearing shoes. And I'm like, I got shoes right here. And they're like, you got to put them on your feet. And I'm like, don't talk to me. You're not Jesus. Or something like that.
Mickey.
I get very Catholic when I get drunk.
You do. I want to kind of shift to something else in the movie here that bothered me.
Please do.
I can't tolerate people who either have a room or area in their house that is designated for something other than using. Like it's a display room, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, I had an aunt. Her name was Aunt Duna. And when we'd go visit her, I remember my parents telling us, be careful, don't put your feet up. We get there. She had the cream-colored carpet. All of her furniture had form-fitted, like plastic rubber covering on them. She had all of these display cases with her little glass animals. It was pointless. Like a quarter of her house was something that you couldn't use. Why the fuck do people do this?
I don't know. This is a thing that happened a lot with me in my childhood, with my aunts as well. And I'm torn on it too, because like with the shoes off thing, right? My aunts always had a shoes off policy. And it makes sense. Like the argument's good. You wear your shoes outside. You're walking on everything. Don't bring that into the house. But at the same time, I'm like, just get rid of the carpet then. Problem solved. You can mop the floors. It's cool. Whatever. But yeah, I think this was like an 80s and 90s thing, though. Maybe now with the advent of such disposable furniture and carpet falling out of vogue, people are just more, I don't know, lax about it.
You know, the house that my father had in Daytona has a ton of like cream carpet, and all I want to do is rip it up. And I'm one of those people that has outdoor shoes and indoor shoes. And when you're on carpet, like there's nothing worse. Like all you want to do is just vacuum it because it's constantly gross and disgusting. I'm so glad we live in a world where tile flooring and hardwood floors is like the way to go. But yeah, no, I mean, as a kid, think about it, Big D. If you told Emma there was a room in the house she couldn't go into, what is she going to do? She's going to go find the cat turds that you keep in the extra bedroom and smear it all over the furniture.
Yeah, you can't have a room that's designated to be kept. When Vanessa was pregnant, we were buying new sofas. She's like, oh, look at these white ones. They're beautiful. I'm like, what the hell are you thinking about? We're going to have a kid. There's no way. Anything white with children does not work. Maybe that's the root of Polly and Liz's problems, is that she's disturbing the way she likes her house.
Yeah. Well, after a pep talk from her friend Janie, Elizabeth moves back into her mother's home. While rummaging through the past belongings in her childhood bedroom closet, Elizabeth finds a tape-shut jack-in-the-box which Polly supposedly trapped drop-dead Fred in years ago. She places the box by the window and gets into bed, and through a series of flashbacks, it is revealed that while he caused havoc for her, he also gave her happiness and a release from her oppressive mother.
Now, at this point, I thought the movie was really going to improve. I thought everything to this point was just the setup, and we get to here, and Fred's going to show up, and suddenly, boom, we understand the magic. We understand why Carrie Gross and Gillian and all these other people made Drop Dead Fred a cult classic. And instead, we get the world's worst episode of Family Guy. It's like, you remember when Fred had the bunny? And then it's just like, lame. Do you remember when you rubbed the poop all over the place? Lame. Anyway, I thought the burglary flashback where she like stole from her own family was going to end in the cops showing up and shooting Nigel, her dad. Because this is where he was struggling with a cop on the stairs. I'm like, oh God, this is what happened to her dad. He didn't walk out on them. He got shot to death because of Fred. And I was like, okay, I can accept that. Like, this would be some merit to the movie. There's at least this deeper, darker part of it. And again, like you guys said, if they would have gone that horror movie angle, I could see it. Instead, we just got lame flashback after lame flashback. Oh, she buried the silverware in the yard. Wow. Naughty, naughty Lizzie.
I would have preferred that. I would have liked to see Nigel get shot because Fred and Lizzie, they're mean-spirited. And yes, her parents, okay, they're shitty parents. The whole time that they think this burglary is going on, they call the police. There's somebody breaking in the house. Oh, no. Not once did they think our daughter is in the house. She's in the next room. They are the worst fucking parents.
Regardless of any of that, I thought the childhood was going to explain to us the merits of Lizzie, why she was a good person, why we should be rooting for her. The movie's got to make us root for someone, and we don't know who to root for. They're all awful people. Like you said, Big D, she was an awful child. I'm watching this kid, and I'm like, she has zero impulse control. She destroys the entire home repeatedly. I don't understand. Are we supposed to be rooting for her? Is she the good guy in this story?
No, there's none of it is like cute and funny or ironic. Fred and Lizzie, they're actually talking about cutting her mother's head off with scissors and a chainsaw. They're going to chop her body up, make her eat it, and then they're going to shit it on the table. Lizzie says to her dad, hey, Dad, let's throw mommy out the window. Lizzie isn't cute. She's crying out for professional help.
I just want Emma, like, what would you do if you came into breakfast one day and you're just sitting there eating cereal and Emma goes, Daddy, can we throw Mama out the window? Like, what do you do?
He's going to take a video and send it to us on Slack. Look what Emma did today.
No?
Yeah. Fucking proud dad.
He laughs. He's like, yeah, I think that would be actually a pretty good idea. I wish, let's make this happen, Captain.
No, I'm going to try to get her help because she needs help. And I'm starting to feel bad for the mother. You know, they continuously portray her as this big evil bitch. Every time Fred and Lizzie see the mom, they call her mega bitch. And the one inexcusable thing that she does, besides, you know, not getting her daughter when they think there's a burglar in the house, when she says that I don't love you as much as I used to, that you can't just give her a pass on. But her daughter is legitimately disturbed. It's completely understandable. What can you do? Lizzie needed boundaries. They portray her as a bitch, overbearing mommy dearest. Maybe she was actually just trying to do what was best for her daughter because she is actually a sick individual. And the mother, to me, has become the most sympathetic character in the movie.
Yeah, and I had the same thoughts because I'm like, what is happening here? Is because I don't really understand the rules. Is Drop Dead Fred real or not? Like, is it really Beth that's going and doing all this? Or do we have a Fight Club situation on our hands here where the reemergence of her imaginary friend in her adult life is really like a Tyler Durden character where Beth is Drop Dead Fred and is going and doing all this? Or is there really truly this magical leprechaun demon type character that's unleashed out of her Jack in the Box and is doing this because Beth is like, I don't want to do this. Please stop this. What is really, again, the movie never really clearly explains this.
I mean, I think we sort of get a hint of it at the end because Fred shows up in another child's life. So you're like, okay, he can't be just a figment of Lizzie's imagination because he appears for another kid. He's also able to hear things in parts of the house that she can't hear. I'm with you on this one, Raj. I don't think he's just a figment of her imagination. I think he is some sort of a spirit or a demon or some otherworldly thing. Also, remember that he interacts with other imaginary friends that Lizzie can't see. So there's got to be some otherworldly supernatural thing going on here.
Or is it that when you're schizophrenic, you can see other schizophrenic imaginary people as well? Like, is that their superpower?
See, this got me thinking. Now, every time you see somebody who's like on the side of the road talking to themselves, and you're just like, oh, you know, poor guy, you know, is mentally ill. Maybe there actually is somebody that he's sitting there talking to that we can't see. And the movie tries to have it both ways. There's certain times that, like you said, Gene, they lead you to believe that he is an independent character acting on his own. But then at the end, the resolution makes you think that he can finally go once Lizzie works through her problems and actually realizes how to stand up to her mother and to feel this new self-worth. So they try to work it both ways. But I think in the end, regardless of whether they see each other, the spirits, what we see, I think it is mental illness's manifestation of this character in her life.
Well, Gene, to your point, though, like, regardless of whether or not Drop Dead Fred is real or not, I thought this is where the movie's going to pick up steam. I thought this is where the comedy comes in. Oh, this is where Yahoo Serious really takes it by the horns. But this is, I realized, unfortunately, not Yahoo Serious. And all the jokes are really bad. Is this who Rik Mayall is? Is this his type of humor?
It is and it isn't, right? Like that spastic, high energy, rambling, very physical comedy. That's Rik Mayall. Like that's what he does. But he's always done it in a more like countercultural, very English, I would say more adult way. And so putting him in this environment, it makes a real mess. I mean, I felt bad for him. It must have been tough for him to keep up this act when it was so much more juvenile than what he normally does. And for people who aren't familiar or don't think that this is a funny actor, go on YouTube. And if you've never watched The Young Ones, go watch some episodes of The Young Ones. One of my favorite skits is the one where he's having a party and he's trying to prove to like a bunch of mods and punks that like he's cool and he's having a party and just doing countercultural things. And it's very, very funny stuff. So I felt bad for him. My friends and I grew up watching reruns of The Young Ones that we found on DVDs, and finally with the internet giving us access to all these episodes, really got into it. So seeing him in this role was really painful to me. And that's a surprise because, as you said at the beginning, Raj, this is an English American comedy. And we've seen other ones, like A Fish Called Wanda, be very successful and be funny. In this case, it's not hitting.
Well, Elizabeth wakes up to find the Jack in the Box slowly playing music. Drop Dead Fred flies out of the box, finally freed after all these years, and he agrees to help her become happy again, which she believes will only happen when she wins back Charles. But Fred's childish antics do more harm than good, and he sinks her friend Janie's houseboat, causing havoc at a restaurant, and makes Elizabeth attack a violinist in a shopping mall. Worried by Elizabeth's recent strange behavior, Polly takes her to a children's psychologist.
So maybe this is due to Lizzie's, upbringing. But now as an adult, everyone around her is either unsupportive or toxic, despite the fact that she obviously has a serious mental illness. She's assaulting people in the mall. She's carrying out acts of vandalism. But Janie, she actually encourages this insane behavior. She thinks it's cute. Janie's just, I'm being a friend. No, she's an enabler. She's allowing her self-destructive behavior. And she provides excuses and makes it possible for Lizzie to avoid any consequence of sinking the damn boat or showing up at her job and being like, oh, Fred's here. And what does she do? She comes out, Jane. She's obviously an attorney in front of a client, and she's going to be on the floor like punching an invisible imaginary friend. This is not helping Lizzie. This is not providing the support that she needs.
The issue that I have though with her Carrie Fisher's character is, again, it's fun. It's an interesting character, but how would these two ever meet up and relate to one another or have enough in common to where she would feel sorry for Elizabeth for doing all these things? Like, first of all, Carrie Fisher lives on a houseboat, so maybe she has her own issues here. Like, is this the deep South answer to boat living?
Well, I mean, listen, it was like the 80s and 90s, so there was nobody in the writer's room to rein in these ideas. they always just had to just give it a little too much. They'd be like, okay, yeah, so he's got a car, but it's got to be a car from the 40s. They're like, or, hey, how does he get to work? On a scooter. Where does she live? A houseboat. What's her job? I don't know, like attorney who's banging her old man boss. Which by the way,
yeah, gross.
Which, by the way, Murray the animal might be the best character in this movie. The guy who didn't have friends, he had wet dreams. The sexuality and romance in the early 90s in movies was so fucking weird. In music, this happened too. Anytime you listen to like a song or some movie from the 80s, they're always like, people are always like drinking wine and like crazy ornate glasses. And there was always that phrase like, I could do it all night, going all night. Yeah, Murray goes all night. I was like, can you guys go all night? I don't know if I ever could go all night.
I don't want to go all night. Why would I want to go all night?
Yeah, it's become obviously clear that Big D's inner Sandy left years ago.
No. Listen. Hold on. You can have a great amount of fun with your partner. It does not have to become an endurance challenge.
When I lost my virginity, it was with a slightly older woman, like just by a couple months, right? And I was a virgin, obviously. She was not. And I just remember that when I was a kid, I read a lot of Cosmo magazines because I grew up at the salon. My mom owned a salon, and so I'd be at the salon all the time. And the only thing there was to read there was like Cosmo. And so I read a lot of these like women's surveys. And one of the things they said is, what's the ideal amount of time for sex? And do you guys want to know what it was?
15 minutes.
I'd say half an hour.
45 minutes, according to the survey.
Is that sex, or is that like the kissing, cuddling, the postcoital?
See, Roger, you just asked the question of an adult. As a teenager, I read that and said, okay. So as we're going, I look over at the clock and I remember it was 11:07. And I'm like, all right, buddy, you got to go to 52. And so at about 11, I think it was like 36, she's like, are you ready to finish yet? I was like, and it was one of those like digital clocks with the really bright red buttons. And so it's kind of moving around weird in the dark while you're going. I'm like, all right, just gotta get to that 52. And she was like, no, you could just finish now. And I was like, oh, thank God. So I think that was the longest I ever attempted to hold on to it. And then we had a long discussion about it the next day about how 45 minutes is not necessary.
No,
Jesus. What are we in Orange Theory trying to get to the orange zone? No.
But like Big D, when's the last time you did it more than once in a night?
Oh, that was a long time ago. Those are pre-child.
How old is Emma?
Pre-child. Emma's 4. All
right, so 5 years ago.
I like when I asked that question and Big D turned into Danny Glover all of a sudden. What was that? Whoa, that was a long time ago. I'm too old for this shit.
I remember those days when we would go multiple times at night. It was...
Yeah. And it happens fast with guys, and I don't know really what it is. But thank God we live in an era where there's a little bit more age appropriation, because I thought as a kid growing up watching these kind of movies that when I got older, I would just have my pick of the litter of women in their 20s that just wanted to date an older guy, because in the 80s, every woman is dated or attracted to an older guy. Like, why is Elizabeth, a hot Phoebe Cates, obsessed with Charles? Who is clearly at least 20 years older than her. Like, Tim Matheson looks way older than Elizabeth. It's almost sinister when they're in public, but I guess this is just how the 80s was.
Obviously, she has some affinity. Maybe that was her first love, but he's a car dealer. I know he's selling Jaguars, but he's a car dealer. I kept expecting he was going to be this big wig executive. They were going to live in this big high-rise penthouse apartment. That I could understand, where she'd be like, oh, we have a good life. She's driving that piece of shit, whatever that was, that she's probably lucky somebody stole it. Her life isn't that good.
Oh, no, it all goes back to Nigel. So her dad left when she was young. That's why Drop Dead Fred has an English accent. She's just trying to recapture her father. And so that's why she likes the older guy. In addition, I think we're supposed to understand that based on her frumpy clothes and her childlike demeanor, that she's desperate and Charles is predatory, right? So she's desperate. He knows he can walk all over her. And it's a very toxic relationship. I think it's what the movie's trying to convey. I don't really, know. But what I do know is that the solution that they offer instead of Charles might be, if not worse, equally bad, which is Mickey. Like Mickey Fart Pants, right? This guy is brought up as he's a mega beta. Like, they basically make him out to be a doormat. There's no way she stays with this guy. Absolutely not, because he can't give that father figure she's looking for. The sad part about all this, though, is that actor who plays Mickey, Ron Eldard, is a former boxing champ. And at one point, he was banging my teenage crush, Juliana Margulis. So what the fuck, man?
Did he ever box with an earring? Like, was that like a part of his trademark? And he's like, listen, I'll be in this movie, but only if I can wear my earrings.
Yeah, they called him Ronnie the Ringmaster.
The Ringmaster. But like, why do they take her to a child psychologist? She's obviously an adult. She's 26 years old. Is this the child psychologist she just grew up with? I don't know how these things work if you have schizophrenia. Do you just stay with the same psychologist no matter the age?
I think it might be that was like the only doctor who dealt with imaginary friends, because like maybe adults don't really get them. I think it was also a diss by it, like is meant to demonstrate what her mom thinks of her, right? That she's still a child. Okay. My big question about this scene is, why do they have to get racist about the imaginary friends? Did you notice the black girl's imaginary friend?
No, what was it?
His name was Velcro Head, and he appeared to be in blackface.
No, I didn't notice that.
Now is it because of the hair, the Velcro head? Like, is that a derogatory term for black people? Velcro head?
You know, sometimes it doesn't have to be a derogatory term that's in use. It could be one that was invented. No, I mean, he's got Velcro skin too. No, he's got like Velcro skin too. It comes off. I'm just saying, like, if I was in the writer's room again and the production side of this movie, and they were like, all right, the black girl's imaginary friend is Velcro Head, I'd be like, no, it's not. We're giving the black girl Graggy. She gets Graggy. Somebody else can have Velcro Head, and he's not going to be in blackface.
Yeah, what was Graggy's? Graggy was the dude that kind of looked like he had the male pattern baldness. He was wearing the lightning, right?
Yeah, he had like the lightning bolt and the tank top. He basically looked like if you and I had a child. He'd have my body hair and you're a spit curl getting together with your cheerful balloon carrying demeanor. This movie's fucking awful.
This is the only part of the movie I actually liked. I liked Graggy. I thought this was hilarious. I thought it was neat. I was like, I want to explore more of this side of the story. All these imaginary friends. I would like to see them go on adventures together. I would have liked a cartoon spinoff of Drop Dead Fred and his wacky adventures with Graggy and Velcro Head. And what was the woman's name in the ballerina suit?
Namby Pamby.
Namby Pamby. As they go on and they just cause havoc and create havoc. Like they go to a nursery in one episode and take down the evil nursery director. They're like the A-Team. Essentially, they just go from childhood house to childhood house, just solving mysteries and building tanks.
They're going to say it's like another season of American Horror Story.
Yeah, no, I like that. This is it. This is the only part of the movie I enjoyed. Well, the doctor prescribes medication to rid Lizzie of Fred. She also changes her appearance and her wardrobe. Charles now wants her back, and she is overjoyed until Fred discovers he is still cheating on her with Annabella. Lizzie and Fred escape to a dream sequence in which she is finally able to reject Charles, stand up to Polly, and declare that she is no longer afraid of her. Fred tells her that she no longer needs him, so they kiss and he disappears into her eternal subconscious.
All right, so at this point in the movie, I'm like, listen, Charles is a dick. Lizzie's got problems, but it's still Phoebe Cates. Like, why would he cheat on her? He's able to reconcile with her. Just be a good dude. And then we see Annabella. And I thought she was just going to be like generic late 80s, early 90s model type, whatever. Nope. It's Bridget Fonda. I'd forgotten she existed. And she's not even credited in the end credits. But holy crap, Bridget Fonda. You guys remember when we were watching Heat and we talked about how gross the sex was with Al Pacino?
Yep.
Have you guys seen Jackie Brown? When Robert De Niro is
only once.
Yeah, he's banging a pantless Bridget Fonda up against the counter, and he's just wheezing, and then he just goes, "That was fun." But thankfully, in that scene, De Niro is fully clothed, but Bridget Fonda, you get a great booty shot, and I just want to say thank God for American cinema, and thank God for Quentin Tarantino.
I think you just described my sexual prowess in bed. Just a lot of wheezing, some coughing, just a weird phrase at the end, like, I wonder what's on Netflix afterwards.
I'm your fella.
Annabella.
But God, she did a lot in the 90s. She was big. She did Singles. Then she was in Single White Female. She did Point of No Return, where she was like that secret agent. Also, she did Doc Hollywood. And then she just kind of vanished. I wonder if this was, just a choice she made to kind of leave Hollywood. But she was dynamite. She was great.
Well, for as sexual as Bridget Fonda is on screen, did you guys feel uncomfortable when Phoebe Cates, the girl who stands under the waterfall, the girl who opens up her top in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the one that, like, as a kid, I was like, what's going on down there? It felt very uncomfortable to watch her be sexual around Charles or like want to have sex. I felt like, what would her character be like in bed? There would be a lot of like, that feels good. Will you, like, she couldn't name body parts. They would all have like, touch my vajayjay, or like, will you push your lips on my on my hoo-ha? I'm gonna touch your wingy dingy. Put your thingy in my mouth. Like I felt like she would. I felt like that's how she would talk. If she was trying to have that. It's very uncomfortable, right? Meanwhile, of course, Bridget Fonda's just exuding sexual chemistry. Of course, I'm going to be with her.
Oh my God, that fucking hair. Oof.
No, but I think that Jean's right. Charles is so predatory that even though we're led to believe that Lizzie is still a child mentally, she's stuck in that phase of her life. So every time we see her do something as an adult, it doesn't seem genuine. It seems like she's acting as an adult, but she's really just a little girl. But it was dirty to watch because you could see him abusing her. And then, that whole dropping, the guy in the toga, his pants, it left me with an uncomfortable feeling.
You're talking about like what's going on at the wine party? I wonder if this is all like 80s parties. I felt like I was watching a party that would be described as Stefan from SNL. Like this party has everything. Art, hot dudes wearing togas, carrying around wine spittoons, Otter from Animal House, and the personification of a mentally unstable 26-year-old schizophrenia looking up women's skirts. Like I felt like that would be like, I felt like that's what 80s parties were. And I'm sad that I missed that. The closest I came was the rave craze in the late 90s. That's the closest our generation will ever get to these type of parties.
Oh no, just go to any hotel opening in LA and you'll still get this. When they open these boutique hotels, they always hire some sort of like an event planner and they'll bring in like the latest artists from LA. There's always models topless with like some weird haircut, very Lady Gaga-esque. LA, I think, is the only place that's still getting down like this. So you haven't quite missed your window yet, Raj. You just got to get out there.
Yeah.
But what also makes me feel uncomfortable, there's that weird father-child, apprentice relationship between Fred and Lizzie. At the end, Fred just can't say goodbye. He's got to give her a kiss. And I know it's not like this, it's not a passionate kiss. It's more like a farewell to childhood gesture. But it's still weird that Fred is a grown man who has developed this relationship with Lizzie as a child. Lizzie is now an adult and he still has that father figure status. It's just creepy and weird that he's like, come here. It's goodbye. And it's a kiss. I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah, it was like a Joe Biden interaction. You're just like, oh, it's creepy. Get that old man away from her. The issue that I have here is like, if this happens repeatedly, if Drop Dead Fred goes from child to child, you would have to imagine that the stage of development varies from child to child. So inevitably, you would have to imagine, as most people grow up at a much earlier phase than Elizabeth does. So how many times is Drop Dead Fred, this evil leprechaun, kissing young girls on the mouth?
I know it's not the first time.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet you that.
It's gross. It's disgusting. I don't understand why women like this movie. Well, upon awakening from the dream, Elizabeth dumps Charles and Lizzie reconciles with Polly and encourages her to find a friend to escape her own loneliness. She goes to her friend Mickey's house and they both express interest in becoming more than just friends. And Elizabeth realizes that Fred is now with Mickey's mischievous daughter, Natalie, and she smiles contently as Natalie terrorizes her nanny. End movie.
So now this movie and Lizzie cannot have it both ways. The end, we're supposed to have this feel-good moment. Lizzie, she supposedly had this mental breakthrough. She's regained control over her mental health. For the first time, she's got value in herself. But I want to know, where is the self-realization of the terrible things that she's done throughout her life? She's mistreated the elderly. She's abused animals. She's destroyed her parents' possessions. And when is she going to acknowledge the fact that she was probably the root cause of all of her family's dysfunction? She ultimately caused her parents' divorce. Most likely her mother was so controlling of Lizzie because Lizzie was an out-of-control child who needed boundaries. In the end, Lizzie plays the victim, but Lizzie was the cause of all of her problems. And subconsciously, she used her mother as a scapegoat to avoid ownership of the horrible things she did. But I'm not going to feel bad for her because in the end, she is the one that caused all of the family's problems.
Yeah, I don't know if we're supposed to, again, like I said, root for Lizzie. I felt like there was a Tracy Chapman song that was missing here. Like, what happened to Lizzie to make her this way? But it just seems like she's just kind of a dick who never takes responsibility for anything. And what freaks me out the most is that when you see Natalie, Mickey's kid, with Drop Dead Fred, Lizzie's reaction is just like, oh, that's quaint. I'd be like, no, if I were Lizzie, I'm like, we need to get you to help immediately.
Yes.
Because he will also ruin your life. You will end up like me with, Mickey Fart Pants, just trying to scrabble together some piece of a life. This parallel should not be something that's celebrated. This parallel is something that should have people concerned and terrified. It's a legacy of failure.
Yeah. And, for all this, what the fuck was up with the sneezing and the bad CGI? Like, I had to go on WebMD and search schizophrenia, and maybe sneezing has something to do, like it rattles the neurons in the brain, and maybe that's why every time she sneezes, Drop Dead Fred does this whole Bugs Bunny off the wall to floor thing. Like, it had no point. It had no point.
This is the sad fucking result of us doing Westworld for 2 seasons, is that we're like, what does it mean? Because while your ass was doing that, my stupid ass was Googling gladiolus to see if there was if there was symbolism in the flower. Gillian, this is something you would do. So if you're laughing at home, stop laughing. It's not funny. But yeah, gladioli, by the way, have a unique and long and pointed shape. And because of that shape, they're named after the Latin word gladius, meaning sword, and associated with gladiator. So it's the flower of strength and integrity. So maybe that's what was going on here, that it represented strength and he was therefore allergic to it.
Oh, all right.
Bullshit. Maybe they just thought it was funny. This is like fucking Tommy running into the glass door 7 times.
Gladiolus! Boing, boing, boing.
Well, now's the time of the podcast where we break out our Shat meters and give her a wipe scores. If you've never listened to the podcast before, a 0 wipe is a absolutely pristine extra room in your household that you keep covered in plastic, and you make sure that there's no kids and you're constantly cleaning the carpets. It's just very clean. It's a perfect, serene place to go and just read a book. A 5 wipe movie is what happens when you have a schizophrenic daughter and also an animal in the house, and they go out and they take the shit and they just smear it all over the place, and you spend all your morning scrubbing that. That being said, 0 wipes is a good movie. 5 wipes is a bad movie. We'll start with you, Big D. What do you think of Drop Dead Fred?
So I want to start off by apologizing to Gillian. We do value you as a listener, and we appreciate your support. But for me, Drop Dead Fred, this was one of the least enjoyable movies that we've had to review. I think they try to walk that line between dark comedy and kids movie and terrifying psychological horror. At the end, it really goes off the deep end. That whole scene inside the house where has to confront her mother, and it seemed like a big mess. I didn't find Fred enjoyable. I thought Lizzie was a kid in need of help. As an adult, I felt she was somebody I didn't feel sympathetic for. So it was hard for me to either laugh or root for her. So in the end, I'm just left thinking, ugh, what did I just watch? So I think it's a 4 wipe movie. It's not the worst we've seen, but it was definitely not an enjoyable movie. But in some sad way, I'm glad that I did watch it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Big D. The story, while lighthearted and humorous, may hold something a little bit deeper than just your average imaginary friend. Many people have suggested that Elizabeth has schizophrenia, as we talked about, and that Fred is simply a result of her mother's emotional abuse. And I get what they're going for here. And again, maybe we don't understand it because we're not forced into societal norms of being a devoted wife, mother, and career woman. But I kept asking myself, is this supposed to be hilarious or a really, really depressing story about the long-term effects of emotional abuse? And for that, it was difficult to find enjoyment in seeing an older English guy who's supposed to be an alt-punk comedic actor put his finger up his nose and wipe it on her and go, booger face, McBooger face, and then bounce off the walls. Like, it made no fucking sense. This movie's so uneven, and I hated it. I hated every minute I watched it. Thank you, Gillian, for torturing us. This is 4.5 wipe movie.
Yeah, Raj, I feel like this is Gillian trolling us. I honestly do.
This is 100%.
Like, we've had our flare-ups with her over the years, and I'm like, maybe she was like, it is worth every penny to make these guys sit through this movie and then try to give a balanced review of an utter turd. Anyone who thinks that Tommy Boy, which we recently covered, was dumb humor, it was just fart, shit jokes, they need to see Drop Dead Fred, because Drop Dead Fred makes Tommy Boy look incredibly cerebral.
Yep.
This movie was boring. It was juvenile. It was pointless. And most importantly, it was a movie that's supposed to be about imagination, and it utterly lacks imagination. Everything was predictable. I felt bad for every member of the cast. I felt bad for both of you gentlemen, but most importantly, I feel bad for the person who commissioned this film, because Lizzie should have just been involuntarily committed about halfway through the movie, turned the damn thing into a horror flick. And if you're thinking I'm being unfair, I just want to point out that there were 2 fantastic movies, actually 3 if you include Fight Club, about imaginary friends. One was the black and white film Harvey, which is fantastic. And then Donnie Darko was, in my opinion, the best imaginary friend movie ever made. And those movies are leagues beyond Drop Dead Fred. So for me, Raj, I'm right there with you. This is a 4.5 white movie.
Yeah, Harvey is obviously the biopic of the famous San Francisco gay activist and politician Harvey Milk.
Correct.
Played by Sean Penn. So make sure you check that out. Okay, so 4.5, 4.5, and 4. If we divide by 3, that gives you an overall Shat score, which is, Gene.
Raj, the average Shat score for Drop Dead Fred is 4.3 wipes repeating.
And Big D, if we were to take this Shat score and smear it all over the walls of the pantheon of Shat, where does that reside, Drop Dead Fred?
So that now has Drop Dead Fred all alone in the 135 spot.
Ooh.
It is slightly better than Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, King Ralph, Highlander, 10 Things I Hate About You.
No.
And it is a little bit worse than Tron, Backdraft, Time Cop, and Westworld, the 1973 Michael Crichton movie.
Those all seem like Turner 100 top classics compared to Drop Dead Fred.
They all.
Keith Ledger is just rolling in his grave somewhere.
Oh
right
my
now.
God.
Outdone by Rik Mayall. Jesus.
I blame Big D for this. He gave it 4. It's because you have a daughter and you're like, I hope she doesn't turn out like this. That's why.
And an imaginary friend.
I think he thinks I'm his imaginary friend. Now's the time where we give our shout outs. Gene, what's a shout out?
Raj, a shout out is our way of saying thank you for visiting our website, shatthemovies.com, where you can see movies that we've done in the past, also vote for future movies, and help contribute to the site. You can do all that at shatthemovies.com. And if you'd like to go directly to the shout outs, just go to shatthemovies.com/shoutouts, and we will read your name on the pod. Guys, I want you to brace yourselves, because this is an exceptionally cruel edition of the shout outs.
No.
And it starts out with Ewad88, Joel from Australia, Big Daddy Walt from Detroit, Eddie Hawk, Adam Blade Runner should be rated worse, R.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Brad Doherty, G. Arcade from England, Ted Danson's hair, I'm better off than all of you, ha ha ha. Amy thanks Lindsay for the Shat recommendation, Simon the Sorcerer, Ben S., Nate the Great, a random Swiss guy. Why does Gene Lyon's voice sound like a sissy girl? The guy's voice is so high, I'm willing to bet that his balls are hanging from his mouth.
From your mouth? Wait a minute. Wouldn't that make your voice deeper if it was like closer to your mouth? That, like, the more it goes closer to your vocal cords, you would imagine that the balls would have a deepening effect. Is that weird?
I don't know, but this genius has the email address imjoking.guys69@yahoo.com.
I'm surprised he didn't put a 420 in there.
The next shout out comes from Roger Groper.
Oh, well, he's obviously been to public parks with me.
And the email address is rickandmortyislife@gmail.com.
Guys, that was mine. I wrote my own shout out.
Maybe you wrote this one too, Raj. Roger Roper's contribution to the podcast makes me want to tie a fucking rope around my neck. You too, Gene Lyons. You sound like you are from the shallow end of the gene pool. Only kidding, guys. I love you. Keep it up.
Did he put Gene pool?
He did.
That's great.
The G pool.
Guy, that was my drop dead Fred.
Also, Corey and Trent from Kentucky. Am I going to have to commission American Beauty? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please do. Sirot Art. Dag, the Norwegian Nightmare. Eddie, there's an N in Punxsutawney, not Puxatawny. I think that one's aimed at you, Big D. And finally, how have you not reviewed The Princess Bride? Funny story about that. We have reviewed The Princess Bride. What likely happened is you heard a rerun of our Groundhog Day podcast, and perhaps maybe at that point we hadn't done The Princess Bride.
No. I think the next one was like When Harry Met Sally or something like that. It was
Groundhog's Day was a while ago, or it just feels like it was yesterday.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, I want to say we did Princess Bride right around the time that Kelly and I started dating, so it was fairly recent, like within the last 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know if it was that recently, but anyway, webstersworld1@gmail.com. Everyone write to him or her. We have done The Princess Bride. You can go to shatthemovies.com, find it right there. It's searchable. Big D set up all the things so nice.
Yeah.
He's been updating the hell out of that site. The guy is a goddamn workhorse.
I wonder if people think like this is us making up these shout outs, or like Eugene, like you just sit at work all day, just think of shout outs. No, these are real things. People actually write these names, these crazy antics, and occasionally they write in emails that we just have to read.
Yeah, Raj, this one goes way beyond just the regular shout out. And it comes from our dear listener, Max Ulanowski, who says, "Good morning, Shat the Movies. I just felt compelled this week to send you guys an email and let you know how much I and other friends appreciate the work you do. I was introduced to Shat the Movies by Dan Scothorn, who you guys gave a shout out on your review of Scarface. My friends and I live in a village called Nambley, Nottinghamshire, and most weekends you'll find us at Sub Point in the local pub, the Woodlark Inn, chatting about the latest review or our favorites that you've covered. Your reviews bring back childhood memories of watching these movies with family, friends, or just on my own, and have encouraged me to seek them out again. I'm so looking forward to Tremors in April. It's a firm favorite. Please don't be too harsh. Can you guys give a big shout out to all my Shat the Movies listening friends in Lambley who are growing week by week, and especially to a massive listener, Dan Burton, who's currently recovering at home with a broken collarbone and numerous ribs following a crash whilst taking part in Paris to Dakar, the original, last week. So no doubt he'll be spending a lot of time listening over the next few weeks. If you're ever in Nottinghamshire in the future, look us up there, and there will be a few jars of beer lined up at the Woodlark. Cheers." And that comes from Max Ulanowski.
You know, I'm possibly planning another trip overseas, going to Amsterdam, then Paris, and then Cardiff, Wales, for some soccer in March. And I wonder, I'll have to look on a map. I don't know where Lambley is, but you know, everything's pretty close. You can probably go by train. It'd be nice to have a couple beers at the Woodlark Inn.
Yeah, it's roughly like between London and Manchester.
Okay,
like
that's not far at all.
That's not too far.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
And Dan, I hope your broken collarbone gets better. I've noticed one common trait a lot of our Shat listeners have is they get injured. They got bad hips, they got collarbones that are broken. Injuries are fairly common, but it's really nice to hear that we have listeners around the world who share our same passion for 80s and 90s movies.
I think it's just a captive audience. I think they're like, listen, we've gone through all the good entertainment. What else? What else do we have? Give me some shatty entertainment. Oh, Shat the Movies.
Yeah, but thanks everybody for listening.
Big D, what movie are we doing next week?
Well, next week it is I think this is one of those movies that was on my top 10 list when we started this podcast. This was a must. And this was commissioned by John Enright. And the movie is about Lane Myers is a teen with a peculiar family and a bizarre fixation with his girlfriend, Beth. When Beth dumps Lane, he decides to kill himself, making bumbling attempt at suicide. Outside of his morbid endeavors, Lane spends time with his oddball buddy Charles and befriends Monique, a visiting French student. Eventually, Lane resolves to race Beth's obnoxious new beau on the ski slopes with unexpected results. It was released in August of 1985. It is an absolute 80s classic.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone who had a bad word to say about this. And this is one of the Mount Rushmore of 80s movies for me. And I cannot wait.
Yeah, it should be a good one. If you wait to the end of the podcast, if you don't know it already, you can listen to the trailer. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Thank you, Gillian, for commissioning Drop Dead Fred. We'll see you at Westworld. Be sure to follow us everywhere on social media, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Just follow the handle at Shat the Movies. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for Shat the Movies. Our website, to make it easy for you, is shatthemovies.com. There you can email us your suggestions, or you can pull up your Outlook or favorite email system, I guess. Is it a system? Is it a
email client?
Platform?
Email client.
Thank you. And send us your suggestions, hosts at shatthemovies.com. You can support the podcast. There's instructions, Big D. Put a link on there to where you can find out how to commission your favorite movies. And you can do that via PayPal, Venmo, or shopping via our Amazon affiliate link. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and more. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That does help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Watchmen, and guys, I don't know if you started it, Westworld coming back March 15th. Find out all the information on our website, shatontv.com. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Gene Snotface Lyons, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie review. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, good night, and good luck.
Does it ever feel like everyone's got more going than you do? Oops. That everyone is smart.
So you're Al Myers' kid? Yes, I am. You look pretty stupid to me. Thank you.
You say the best skier in town just ran off with your girlfriend? Even your younger brother does better than you do? And that nobody even cares?
Beth broke up with me.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, you might be right. But remember one thing.
I haven't even been to New York City.
Nobody was ever better off dead.
The truth is, I could outski you any day of the week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you want to race? I'll take you on any day, sucker.
Go that way, really fast. If something gets in your way, turn.
All you need is guts.
All right! Now turn!
I'm going to race, I'm going to lose, and I'm going to die, in that order.
Go!
And you'll never doubt yourself again.
He's skiing on one ski!
Better off dead.
And that's a real shame when folks be throwing away a perfectly good white boy like that.
An abnormal look at a normal teenager.